I was preparing a surprise for her. A cruise, wine, her favorite sweets, and 24 roses. But most of all, I was preparing to say thank you for 30 years together. That same evening, she was putting on a dress, but not for me. I came home with arms full of love, and was left with empty hands, and a heart no one was waiting for anymore. That's when something inside me broke. Quietly. No shouting. No tears. Just fire. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about belief, about limits, about the silence after the explosion, and about a man who lost everything, but found himself. But let's start at the very beginning. It all started a long time ago, way before I ever thought about getting married. I first met Claire in a crowded college cafeteria. I was deep into my law books back then, always studying, always serious. She stood out right away. Claire had streaks of paint on her hands, and this bright, infectious laugh that made people turn their heads. She was an art student, creative, curious, full of life. The very first time we talked, it was over something small. She came over and asked if she could take a sugar packet from my table. That little moment, barely a few words, stuck with me. It was like a tiny spark, something that would grow much bigger as time went on. That first year together was wild, full of ups and downs, but exciting as hell. We were both swamped with classes, but we always found time to sneak away for late-night chats in quiet corners of campus or grab coffee at old diners when we should have been sleeping. Claire had this way of saying exactly what was on her mind. No filter. And I was more the type to plan everything out, always double-checking things. Somehow, our differences just worked. We balanced each other in ways that surprised me. It did not take long for me to realize she was not just someone I enjoyed being with. She was someone I wanted to build a life with. After graduation, life pushed us in different directions. Claire chased her dream of studying art in Paris, while I took a tough job at a big law firm back in the States. The distance was rough, no doubt about it. But we wrote letters, made long-distance calls, visited when we could. Somehow we made it through. One trip to Paris still stands out. We were walking near the Eiffel Tower, lights twinkling all around us. I pulled out a small sapphire ring, my hands shaking, and asked her to marry me. She said yes with the biggest smile I have ever seen. That moment, it's burned into my memory forever. Our wedding was not fancy, but it was beautiful. We got married in the backyard of her childhood home. Just close friends and family, simple decorations, and a whole lot of love. Claire even painted the table centerpieces herself, something only she could make so special. The best part? Our first dance under strings of lights, while a little string quartet played softly in the background. The early years of our marriage were far from easy. We had career struggles, money worries, you name it. But no matter what came our way, we leaned on each other. Claire was my rock, and I like to think I was hers too. Then came our daughter, Ivy. She was curious, full of energy, and changed everything. Parenting was no joke, especially while trying to chase our dreams. But we figured it out, together. We made it work because we never stopped believing in each other. As Ivy got older, things began to settle. Claire's art finally got the recognition it deserved, and my work at the law firm paid off. We moved into a quiet home in the suburbs, with a little studio out back where Claire could paint as much as she wanted. Even with all that comfort, we still found ourselves missing the spark we had in the beginning. Life had become routine, safe, steady, but every now and then, I'd catch her looking at me a certain way, and I'd remember everything we had been through. One day, sitting at my desk, I got lost in those memories. 30 years of marriage. It is hard to put into words. So many moments, good and bad. But one memory kept rising above the rest. Our honeymoon. Hawaii. That trip was something else. From the moment we arrived, it felt like time had stopped. All the stress, all the noise of regular life, it disappeared. I remember us walking along the beaches of Waikiki, waves rolling over our feet, the smell of plumeria flowers in the air. It felt like we had stepped into a dream. But it was more than the scenery. It was the way we connected out there. We hiked through rainforests, stood beside waterfalls, and just took it all in together. In Maui, we stayed in a villa on the edge of a cliff. Every evening, we watched the sunset turn the sky orange and pink, holding each other close, not saying much, just feeling it all. The nights were even more magical. We had candlelit dinners right on the beach. Fresh seafood, soft music, and the stars above us. But the thing I remember most? The way Claire looked at me, so full of warmth, love, and peace. like she saw straight into my soul. That trip became more than a vacation. It turned into a symbol of our love, a chapter in our story I will never forget. Even now, decades later, I can still feel it. That trip made us stronger. It left a kind of joy and calm in our hearts that never fully went away. As I sat there lost in thought, my secretary came in. She looked at me funny and smiled. "You have been in such a good mood lately," she said, teasing. "What is your secret? Did you win the lottery or something?" I laughed and shook my head. "It's Claire," I told her, my voice soft. "She has just been so kind and loving lately. For the first time in years. I really feel seen." I paused for a moment, then said it out loud. "To be honest, it feels like we're back on our honeymoon." I laughed a little, shaking my head. I catch myself thinking about her all the time. I even call her a few times a day just to hear her voice, just to tell her I love her. I knew I probably sounded like a teenager with a crush, but I did not care. I felt alive again, like something inside me had woken up. After 30 years together, Claire and I always had a strong bond, a steady connection, but over time, the spark had faded a little. That is just what happens, right? But something had changed over the last couple of weeks. I could feel it. Claire's energy had this playful light to it again. She was more affectionate, more present, and that old fire in her eyes? It was back. I did not ask why. I just soaked it in, grateful for the chance to fall in love with her all over again. That night, I figured it was my turn to do something special. So, I left the office earlier than usual. On the way home, I stopped by the flower shop and picked up 24 roses. Then I grabbed a bottle of her favorite red wine, a box of those chocolate-covered cherries she loves, and wrote a note from the heart. But the real surprise was something I had planned in secret, a 7-day cruise, just for the two of us. I could not wait to tell her. I came into the house through the garage, practically buzzing with excitement. But when I got inside, it wasn't Claire who greeted me, it was our daughter, Ivy, sitting at the kitchen table. I leaned over, kissed her forehead, and smiled. "Hey, sweetheart. Where's your mom?" What I did not know, what I could not have guessed, was that 2 weeks earlier, Claire and Ivy had shared a conversation that set everything in motion. A talk that would end up changing everything. Claire's voice had been unsure, shaky even. "Brandy, I do not know about this," she said, her hands probably twisting in her lap. "I love your father so much. I am terrified that doing this might hurt him in a way I can't undo." Brandy, calm as ever, leaned forward. "Mom, listen. Dad loves you. He always has. And he will understand. You have told me before there are things you wanted but never let yourself experience." She gave a small smile. "And let's be real, Dad's not getting any younger. It's just one night. He would want you to be happy, even if it is a little different." Claire let out a long breath, her hands trembling. "I do not think I can tell him," she whispered. "I can't imagine looking him in the eyes and admitting that I'm going on a date with someone else. I can't." "You do not have to," Ivy said gently. "I will take care of it. Julian will be waiting at the restaurant at 7 o'clock. You leave by 6. When Dad gets home, I will explain everything." She reached out, touching her mom's hand. "You will have the chance to feel something new, something you've been craving. Just give yourself that." Claire rubbed her temples, trying to breathe. "Brandy, I agreed to this, but now that it's real, it feels wrong. What if it destroys everything I have with your father? How do I even look at him afterward?" "Mom," Ivy said softly, "you don't need to carry that guilt. For the next 2 weeks, just focus on showing Dad how much you care. Remind him that he is everything to you. This is not about replacing him. It is about giving yourself one small moment of joy." She squeezed Claire's hand. "Dad has always given you everything you needed, hasn't he?" Claire looked at her daughter, torn in two. But slowly she nodded. "Maybe you're right," she whispered. "It's just one evening. It doesn't mean I'm leaving your father. After all these years, one night shouldn't be this scary." Brandy gave her a smile that was full of reassurance. "Exactly. Dad's an amazing man. He'll understand. This will only make your bond stronger." She stood up and grabbed her purse. "Now, I have to run. Derek's waiting on me. Dinner does not cook itself." "Thanks, sweetheart," Claire said with a tired smile. "Tell Derek I said hello. Are you two ever going to make me a grandma?" Brandy laughed on her way to the door. "Soon, Mom. We have been talking about it. We are planning to start trying in a few months." Then she was gone, the soft sound of the door clicking behind her leaving the house in stillness. Claire walked into the art studio I had built for her years ago. That room used to be her place of peace. Lately, though, it felt more like a prison. Guilt had smothered her creativity. Every canvas stayed blank, every brush untouched. But as she stood there, Ivy's words began to settle in her mind. Slowly, without even thinking about it, Claire picked up a paintbrush. Her hand moved with purpose, bold strokes filling the canvas with color. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt like herself again. In that quiet space, she whispered, "Noah loves me. He always has. He might be hurt, but I'll make him understand. I'll show him this change is nothing." That evening, she went a step further. After a long shower, she styled her hair just right, put on some makeup, and stepped into that soft baby doll nightgown I always loved. She slipped on a pair of heels too, something she hadn't done in years. It gave her a little extra boost of confidence. When I walked in through the front door, there she was, smiling, glowing. Before I could even put down the flowers and wine, she took my hand and led me straight to the bedroom. It caught me completely off guard, in the best possible way. "Claire," I said, grinning like a fool, "this is the best welcome I've had in years." "You really mean that?" I asked, teasing her a little, though I could not stop smiling. "Absolutely," I said, pulling her into a hug. I did not realize just how much I missed this. Hearing those words come out of my own mouth, feeling the truth in them, it washed away whatever doubt still lingered. That night, we reconnected in a way that felt real and raw. It was like rediscovering something we had not even noticed was missing. The next 2 weeks were some of the best we had shared in years. We laughed more. We touched more. We looked at each other the way we used to. It felt like falling in love all over again, but deeper this time, with all the history between us adding layers of meaning. I felt like a new man, full of life, light on my feet, and Claire, well, she seemed to glow. Happier than I had seen her in ages. So much so that she started questioning whether that date with Julian still made sense. One night, she sat down with Ivy and told her how she felt. "I do not think I need to go through with it anymore," she said. "Your dad and we've reconnected in such a beautiful way." Brandy nodded, but I imagined there was some hesitation behind her eyes. "That's amazing, Mom," she said gently. "But maybe don't cancel just yet. Keep enjoying this time with Dad, but keep your mind open. You might regret not going." Claire tilted her head, thinking, "Tell me again about Julian. I know he's your friend's dad, but what else?" Brandy's voice softened as she explained. "Julian lost his wife, Vivian, after a long illness. Brain tumor. They were everything to each other. After she passed, he kind of shut down. Closed himself off from everyone, family, friends, even himself." She paused a moment, then continued. "When I brought up the idea of dating again, he said he wouldn't even know where to begin. But when I mentioned you, something lit up in him. He smiled, Mom, for the first time in years. He said you sounded wonderful. He really wants to meet you. I think you could help each other heal." Her words stuck with Claire. They played in her head as the date got closer. It stirred up feelings she had not expected, excitement and guilt. She had started texting with Julian, and it brought a thrill she had not felt in years. It was lighthearted and a little flirty. She said it made her feel alive again, like a younger version of herself was waking up. But at night, she gave herself fully to me. She hugged me tighter, kissed me longer, told me she loved me more often. It was like she was pouring all of herself into our time together, maybe trying to balance out the conflict inside her. I noticed the difference. She was glowing, laughing, walking with that confident sway I remembered from years ago. And I felt different too, like we were back at the start, only stronger. 30 years behind us, but it felt like something brand new had begun. She looked at me like I was still the man she fell in love with. And I believed it. I truly believed it. Until the night everything fell apart. I had just gotten home from work, arms full, roses, wine, chocolates. I was smiling, excited like a schoolboy. I had this whole surprise planned. I was finally going to tell her about the cruise. But instead of Claire, I found Ivy sitting at the kitchen table. Just her. She looked up as I walked in, and I instantly felt that familiar warmth, the kind only a father feels when he sees his child. Brandy was my pride. Strong, kind-hearted, smart. I used to wish I had spent more time with her when she was little, but I did everything I could to give her and Claire a good life. I worked hard. I showed up when it counted. "Brandy, what a surprise," I said, setting the gifts down. "What brings you here? And where's your mom?" I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the envelope, the cruise tickets. "I've got a surprise for her," I grinned. "A 7-day trip on that new yacht. Just me and her. She's going to love it. But don't say a word. It's a secret." She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite name. Worry, maybe? Sadness? Dad, she said quietly, and something in her voice made my chest tighten. I froze. I knew that tone. I had heard it when she was a little girl, trying to tell me something she didn't want to say. But this wasn't a scraped knee or broken toy. This was something else. What's going on? I asked, pulling out a chair. Is everything okay with your mom? Brandy's hands trembled. She nodded too quickly. She's fine, she said, but her voice cracked. But we need to talk. That sinking feeling hit me hard. I sat down, bracing for whatever was coming. You know Mom loves you, right? She began. She's been telling me how happy she's been. Things between you two have been really good lately. Yes, I said, heart pounding. That's why I'm doing all this. To show her how much she means to me. I gestured to the roses, the chocolates. I thought maybe a little light humor would take the edge off. But then Ivy's eyes filled with tears, and she looked away before meeting my gaze again. Dad, I'm so sorry, but Mom's on a date tonight. The words hit me like ice water. I just sat there, staring at her, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. What? I whispered. She's out with someone else, Ivy said, her voice shaking. She couldn't tell you herself, so she asked me to. It's only for one night. She'll be back tomorrow. I felt like the ground had dropped out beneath me. This has to be a joke, I said, my voice rising. She would never do this. We've never been better. This doesn't make sense. Brandy stood up, trying to calm me. She loves you, Dad. She just needed something different. She told me it wouldn't change anything about how she feels about you. She thought maybe it would even help somehow. I shoved the chair back, standing so fast it scraped the floor. And why are you in the middle of this? I asked, my voice sharp now. This is between me and your mother. She had no right dragging you into this. Brandy hesitated. Her eyes looked away, but her voice was steady. Because Mom and I are close, Dad. She tells me everything, Dad, Ivy said quietly. Mom told me she was feeling invisible, like things had gone flat between you two. And my friend's dad. He's been alone ever since his wife passed. She hesitated. They connected and I introduced them. You did what? I snapped, my voice exploding out of me before I could stop it. You introduced your mother to another man? You set this up? Are you out of your mind? Brandy flinched, already in tears. I was just trying to help, she said, her voice breaking. I thought it was what Mom needed. I never meant for you to get hurt. Help? I shot back, my voice dripping with bitterness. Help who exactly? Certainly not me. Where's she right now? What do you mean she won't be back until tomorrow? Brandy's voice shrank. They're at a restaurant. I don't know which one. After dinner, they're spending the night together. But only this once. She'll be home in the morning. The words landed like blows. My heart pounded in my ears. Everything I thought was real, the warmth, the laughter, the tenderness these past 2 weeks. Was it all just guilt? A cover-up? So that was all fake? I asked coldly. All that affection, just a smokescreen to hide this betrayal? She's tossing 30 years in the trash for this. She's not throwing anything away. Ivy cried, sobbing hard now. She loves you, Dad. She just needed this moment. Please, try to understand. I stared at her, the betrayal churning inside me like a storm. When I finally spoke, my voice came out low and tight. Brandy, I think you should go. Now. Her eyes widened in shock. Dad, go. I said firmly, each word like a door slamming shut. You and your mother made your choices. Now I have to make mine. She stayed seated, shoulders trembling as the sobs took over. Dad, please don't say that, she whispered. I love you. I didn't want to leave you alone tonight. Mom and I talked. She asked me to stay, just to make sure you were okay. I clenched my fists, struggling to hold back the rage bubbling under the surface. My voice was cold, stripped of warmth. You know, Ivy, tonight you've made me wonder if you ever respected me at all. You're just like your mother, cut from the same cloth. For years I gave everything I had to this family. My time, my energy, my dreams, everything. And for what? So you could blindside me like this. I gestured around the kitchen like I was trying to show her everything I'd built. I was nothing but a provider to you two. I guess love and respect never made it into the deal. Brandy lifted her tear-soaked face, her lips trembling. Dad, please do not say that. You and Mom have had 30 beautiful years together. You love her. Just let her explain when she gets back. I promise, she won't leave you. I shook my head, my voice rising now with every word. She might get her one thing, hell, Maybe 2 or 10, but she will never have me again. Forgiveness? That's gone. And as for this lonely man who thought it was fine to pursue a married woman, he'll face the consequences too. I pointed toward the door. Now get out. You've made it clear where your loyalties lie. You still have your mother. You two are a perfect match. My voice dropped, but the words cut deeper than a scream. As far as I'm concerned, Ivy, you are no longer my daughter. She stood, slowly, like her body could barely hold itself up. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked at me one last time, like she was hoping for something, understanding, a sliver of grace, anything. But I had nothing left to give. She turned and walked out. The door slammed shut behind her, echoing through the house like a final nail in the coffin. The sound rang in my ears, long after she was gone. I stood there, not moving, the silence pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't lift. Maybe that was the moment Ivy realized what she'd done, how far she'd crossed the line. Maybe not. Either way, it was too late. The betrayal from both of them hit me square in the chest, knocking the breath out of me. And the worst part? I didn't even want to process it. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to feel. I grabbed my phone and dialed Claire. Straight to voicemail. Again. Nothing. I left messages, first pleading, then furious. I begged her to come home. Then I told her exactly how I felt. Anger, heartbreak, disbelief. I dumped it all out into message after message. Still no reply. By 2 in the morning, I knew. She wasn't coming back. Not tonight. And maybe not ever. I sat there on the couch, the television buzzing in the background, though I couldn't tell you what was playing. The noise was just there, like static, something to distract me from the wreckage spinning through my head. 30 years. 30 years of memories, of shared dreams, of building a life together, and now I was sitting there, alone, crushed beneath the weight of it all. I thought about Ivy as a baby, her first steps, her first day of school, her wedding. I thought about Claire, smiling beside me through every one of those milestones. And even in the recent years, when things were quieter, we still made time for each other. We were still intimate, still ended the night whispering I love yous. It wasn't the kind of fire we had at 20, but it felt honest. It felt real. Or so I thought. I looked out the window, the outline of Claire's art studio visible under the moonlight. I had built that place with my own hands, 20 years ago. It was her space, her dream. It had become her sanctuary, her escape, a place full of color and creativity. She had won awards, been in galleries. I was proud of that. I was proud of her. But now, that studio felt like a monument to everything I had poured into this marriage. Every hour, every ounce of love. And for what? For her to betray it all? Fueled by anger and a few drinks, I started pacing the house, thoughts racing faster than I could control them. I couldn't just sit there. I had to do something. Anything. And as I stared at the studio, it became something else. Not a symbol of love anymore, but a reminder of everything I had lost. I stopped pacing. Then I turned and began hauling Claire's things, one by one, into the studio. Her shoes, her dresses, her jewelry, every expensive thing she owned. I carried it all into that studio and dropped it in a pile right in the center. Her so-called sanctuary. Then I started going through the rest of the house. I grabbed photo albums, wedding pictures, souvenirs from vacations, keepsakes from the attic, all of it. Even her wedding dress. Even Ivy's baby clothes. Things that once held real meaning for me, now just felt hollow. By the time the sun started creeping over the horizon, that room was packed to the brim. A monument to a life I didn't recognize anymore. I gave myself a deadline, 6 o'clock. If she wasn't back by then, I would finish what I'd started. At 6:05, something inside me snapped. I went out to the garage, grabbed a can of gasoline, and poured it over everything in that room. The fumes filled the air, soaking into the walls, the memories, the fabric of the past. My hands trembled as I pulled a match from the box. I stood there for a second, then struck it. The flame flared to life. I tossed it inside. The fire caught instantly. Within seconds, the studio was a roaring inferno. I stood just outside, the heat licking my skin, watching everything burn, every canvas, every photo, every piece of her that I had ever cherished. Smoke curled up into the sky, thick and dark. A message. One she would see from miles away. When the heat grew too strong, I turned away, climbed into my truck, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to go. Tears streamed down my face, hot and helpless. The pain was too big to name, too loud to think through. By the time I reached a small highway motel nearly 100 miles away, I was running on nothing but fumes and heartbreak. I paid in cash. Didn't want anyone knowing where I was. I barely made it onto the bed before sleep took over. It was noon when I woke up. I turned on my phone, and it blew up with missed calls, texts, and voicemails. Brandy, Claire, even the sheriff. That crushing weight came back all at once. There was no fixing this. No going back. The life I knew was over. At the same time, somewhere else in the city, Claire was stepping out of an Uber with her heart pounding in her chest. Julian was already waiting outside the restaurant, leaning casually near the entrance. He had that easy, confident smile, and even I could admit, from pictures or memory, that the man was sharp, tall, put together. Hands in his pockets like he didn't have a worry in the world. Claire had put thought into her outfit. She wore a fitted black dress that hugged every curve, sheer tights, and the high heels I used to compliment her on. Earlier that day, she'd spent hours doing her hair, her makeup, wanting to feel flawless. Julian's gaze told her it had paid off. His eyes followed her as she walked up, lingering just a second longer than they should have. When she greeted him with a soft kiss on the cheek, he leaned in a little more. His cologne was warm and clean, probably expensive. They walked inside, sat at the bar, and ordered drinks. Claire caught him glancing at her legs. The way she told it, she felt, wanted, not just appreciated, but truly desired, something she hadn't felt in years. She silenced her phone and tucked it into her purse. She had made her choice. Their conversation flowed. Lighthearted. Flirty. Claire laughed more than she had in months. She reached out to touch his arm. Leaned in when she talked. She was letting herself enjoy the moment, losing herself in this version of life where she was still vibrant, still seen. After a second round of drinks, the hostess led them to a quiet, dim corner of the restaurant. Candlelight flickered between them. The food was elegant, but Claire barely noticed. It was Julian's voice, his eyes, his attention that held her captive. At one point, he leaned in, his voice low and playful. "So, do you still want to spend the night with me?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she slipped off one heel and gently pressed her foot against his leg under the table, slow and deliberate. His eyes dropped to her toes, painted red, peeking through the sheer tights. He smiled. A quiet, knowing smile. "It's time we go," he said. They walked out hand in hand into the cool night air. It was electric. They made their way to his hotel. He had booked a room in advance. Claire didn't ask questions. She didn't hesitate. In the elevator, a flicker of doubt crossed her face. I don't know if it was guilt or just fear, but Julian sensed it. He pulled her into his arms, kissed her, slow and deep, like he was trying to erase every hesitation she had. And it worked. Once inside the room, things moved fast. He unzipped her dress and let it fall to the floor. He stood there, drinking her in like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. He whispered to her as he peeled the rest away. She said his words made her feel young again. Wanted. Worshipped. He laid her gently on the bed, every touch deliberate. His hands, his kisses, they made her forget where she was, what she had left behind. At one point, he asked her to put her heels back on. "I love the way they look on you," he murmured. She did it. She said it made her feel bold, wild even. They made love, slow and intense, no holding back. No guilt. Just heat and connection. Then, in a moment that shook her more than anything else that night, Julian looked into her eyes and said it. "I love you, Claire." Those words caught her completely off guard. Her breath hitched. Tears welled up in her eyes. She felt something break open inside her. Something she hadn't even known was closed. And for a moment, that hotel room became another world. We didn't stop after that first time. The passion came in waves, again and again, each moment more intense, more meaningful than the last. And then, the sun began to rise. As light slipped through the curtains, reality began creeping back in. Memories of Noah came flooding in. The life we had built. The promises we made. With them came guilt, heavy, sharp. I felt it pressing down on my chest. Julian was gentle. His hand in my hair, his voice barely above a whisper. "Claire, I meant what I said. You are amazing. Strong. Beautiful. I want to see you again. We could have something real." I looked at him, and for a second, I wanted to believe in that possibility. But I couldn't. "Julian," I said carefully, "this was incredible. Truly. You're a wonderful man. But I'm married. And this was a one-time thing. I can't do this again." His eyes searched mine, still hopeful. "Think about it," he said softly. "I can make you happy." "I'll think about it," I replied, though deep down, I knew the answer wouldn't change. He kissed me once more, and I let it happen. Just for a moment, I allowed myself to wonder, what if things had been different? Then I gathered my things, and the weight of what I had done came crashing down. After breakfast at the hotel, Julian drove me home. I turned on my phone for the first time since last night. Instantly, the screen lit up, dozens of missed calls, messages, voicemails. One message from Noah stood out, making my stomach twist. He had been trying to reach me all night. The guilt came rushing back like a tidal wave. He had been in pain, and it was because of me. My hands trembled. Just as I went to check the rest of the messages, the phone rang. Brandy. Mom. Where are you? Her voice was panicked. I'm on my way home now, I said, heart pounding. What's wrong? There was a fire at the house. Her voice cracked. We tried calling you. All night. Your phone was off. A fire. I could barely breathe. Is your dad okay? Where is he? That's the thing, she whispered. He's missing. No one's seen him. He's not answering his phone. I have a really bad feeling, Mom. I'm coming. I'll be there soon. Just stay put. I'll call you back. As Julian turned onto our street, my heart dropped. Flashing lights. Fire trucks. Police cars. The front of the house still stood, but the air was thick with smoke and the stink of something gone terribly wrong. I got out of the car, legs shaky, and approached a firefighter standing near the driveway. Excuse me, I said, barely finding my voice. I'm Claire Hawthorne. This is my house. What happened? He looked at me, then at Julian, then back. Mrs. Hawthorne, he said gently, most of the house was spared. But there's a lot of smoke damage. You won't be able to stay here until we finish cleaning and inspecting. The worst of it, he paused, was in the small building out back. My studio? I asked, voice shaking. He gave a small nod. It's gone. Nothing left but ashes. His words hit me like a punch. My knees gave out, and Julian rushed to catch me, helping me sit down on the curb. Tears poured down my face as I stared toward the blackened outline of what had once been my sanctuary. The place where I had created, dreamed, healed, now reduced to rubble. Gone. Just like that. A man approached, Detective Granger. I hadn't even noticed him until he was right in front of me. Mrs. Hawthorne, he said. Do you have any idea what might have caused the fire? I shook my head. No. I wasn't home. I don't know anything about it. He looked at Julian. And you are? Just a friend, Julian replied quickly, too quickly. The detective's eyes narrowed. Then he turned back to me. Where's your husband, Mrs. Hawthorne? I don't know, I said, barely above a whisper. And where were you last night? I hesitated, then said it. I was downtown, at the Hilton, with him. I nodded toward Julian. The look on the detective's face changed immediately. His brows rose. He glanced toward his partner. My stomach dropped. I had just told him I had spent the night with another man, while my husband was missing. The weight of that fact settled hard in the pit of my stomach. Are you and your husband separated? He asked. No, I said quickly, my voice too tight. We're not. We're happily married. Even I didn't believe the words as they came out. When you hear from him, have him contact us. He handed me a card. We have questions. He walked away, and I was left spinning. My heart ached for the loss of my studio. But deeper still, I felt fear, real, growing fear, over what Noah might have done, or what might have happened to him. I called Ivy. Have you heard from your dad? No, she said, anger and worry in her voice. Why weren't you there last night, Mom? You promised. I know, I said, trying to stay composed. What happened? She hesitated, then said something that broke me. He threw me out. What? He told me I wasn't his daughter anymore. Her voice cracked. I stood in silence, stunned. Noah, the man who'd always been our rock, saying something like that? It was unthinkable. But then again, so was everything I had done. What had I become? Inside the house, the smoke clung to everything. The walls were streaked black. It didn't even feel like home anymore. I walked room to room, numb, grabbing a few things. When I opened the door to our bedroom, I froze. It was empty. Everything that was mine gone. My clothes, my shoes, my keepsakes, even the wedding rings I had left on the nightstand, missing. A cold realization washed over me like ice. Noah hadn't just walked away. He had erased me. Noah must have taken everything. Did he think I had abandoned him? Had he burned my things out of rage? I sank to the floor, the guilt and fear crashing down all at once. I stumbled back outside and made my way to the ruins of the studio, hands trembling as I sifted through the blackened mess. There were pieces, scorched corners of paintings, melted picture frames, fabric that had been part of something beautiful. All of it gone. It wasn't just anger. Noah hadn't walked out. He had erased me. Overwhelmed, I called Ivy again. My voice cracked with every word. Brandy, I can't stay here. I have nowhere to go. Julian, who had been standing quietly nearby, stepped toward me. You can stay with me, he said gently. But I couldn't look at him. I couldn't face the part he played in all of this, or the part one let him play. I need to be alone, I said sharply. He nodded. Hurt flickered across his face, but he said nothing more. He got into his car and left. I stood there, surrounded by ash and smoke, as the last bits of my old life slipped through my fingers. And all I could feel was fury, at myself, at Julian, at everything I'd done. I knew, deep down, this was all on me. But it was easier, in that moment, to blame someone else. To resent the man who had made me feel seen. Just long enough for me to throw everything away. I turned to Evie, my voice shaking. I've lost your father. Don't say that, Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. He loves you. He always has. He burned it all, Ivy, I said through sobs. My art. My clothes. The studio. Everything. He didn't leave me anything. Not even a place to sleep. He won't answer my calls. I don't blame him. What I did, it's unforgivable. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I should have told him how I felt. We could have talked it through. Instead, I went on a date with another man. I let someone else touch me. I threw it all away. I dropped my head into my hands. And now, I have nothing. No home. No clothes. No future. Brandy's voice cracked as she spoke. Mom, I'm at fault too. I should have never encouraged it. But you can stay with us. At least until we figure out what's next. This afternoon we'll go buy you clothes. We'll get through this. One step at a time. I shook my head, still crying. Brandy, it's not just the house. It's not just the studio. It's everything. 30 years of marriage. 20 years of work. All my paintings, my sculptures. Gone. And now I'm completely alone. I broke down again, falling to my knees in the street as neighbors looked on from behind their windows. I didn't care anymore. Then my phone rang. Noah's name flashed on the screen. My heart stopped. With shaking hands, I answered. Noah? Noah, is that you? His voice came through cold. Flat. How are you, Claire? Please, I begged. Where are you? We need to talk. No, he said sharply. There's nothing to talk about. I know everything. Ivy told me. And let's get one thing straight. She's your daughter now. Not mine. His words hit like a bullet. Noah, please don't say that. I cried. I love you. I know I messed up. But we can fix this. We can. The studio, he cut in, his voice sharp. You're wondering if I burned it down? I hesitated. Yes. I didn't burn it, Claire, he said. You did. Maybe not with your hands. But when you walked out that door and gave yourself to another man, you set the whole thing on fire. I saw your wedding rings on the dresser, he continued. I knew you weren't coming home. And at that moment, you stopped existing to me. I built that studio for you. I gave you everything. And what did I get back? Lies. Manipulation. You used 2 weeks of affection to ease your guilt before you betrayed me. And Ivy's involvement? He paused, disgusted. Unforgivable. I'm done. He didn't raise his voice, but each word came like a blade. I'll be meeting with a lawyer Monday. The divorce is happening. Noah, please. I whispered, barely able to speak. We've spent 30 years together. You threw it away, he said coldly. You made that decision. I hope you live with it. But do not contact me again. Speak to me through my lawyer. Noah. I choked out, but the line went dead. I stared at the screen, still glowing in my hand. Then I collapsed. Right there on the sidewalk, clutching my phone, sobbing uncontrollably. Moments later, Ivy arrived and dropped to her knees beside me, holding me close as we cried together. For everything we had lost. My marriage. My home. The life I thought I would have forever. At Tibby's house, things only got worse. She explained everything to Derek, her husband. The moment he heard it, he erupted. You what? He shouted. You encouraged your mom to go out with another man? You let your dad come home to that. Alone. What the hell were you thinking, Ivy? Did you actually believe he'd just be okay with it? What kind of man would accept that? Is that how you'll treat me when we're older? He looked at her with pure disbelief. Your dad was a good man. He loved you. He loved your mom. You both shattered him. Brandy couldn't speak. Her face went pale. Derek took a breath, trying to steady himself, but the anger was still there. I'm calling Noah, he said. He deserves to hear from someone who still respects him. And you and I, we need to talk. Seriously talk. About us. About whether we even move forward. Kids, he added, his voice lower now. That's off the table for now. I need to know what kind of person I'm with. Because I will not raise a family with someone who thinks what happened here is anything less than cruel. Brandy finally understood what her actions had set in motion. To her, it had seemed like one small decision, a way to help her mom. But now she saw what it had really done. The damage, the consequences, and the people they might never get back. Brandy's world had crumbled. Her parents' marriage was over, their family torn apart, and now her own relationship with Derek hung by a thread. The fallout from what she had done wasn't just beginning. It was already spreading like wildfire. And it would haunt all of us for a long, long time. 5 days after it all came crashing down, I returned to the house. I needed to face what was left. I decided not to involve insurance. I didn't want the hassle. During my meeting with the lawyer, I was clear about one thing. I was keeping the house. Non-negotiable. Claire could have half our savings. But child support? Out of the question. If she fought it, I'd go public, with everything. The affair, the connection to Evie's friend's father. I was done playing nice. The divorce paperwork was already moving. I also talked with a criminal defense attorney, just to be sure. Since I owned the property and wasn't filing a claim, the risk of charges for burning the studio was low. At worst, maybe a fine. That was a small price for reclaiming my peace. With legal worries out of the way, I started walking the house, room by room, sizing up the fire damage. It would cost a fortune to fix, but I didn't care anymore. The memories tied to those walls were burned up with the rest. I was standing in one of the back bedrooms when I heard the front door creak open. "Dad, are you here?" Ivy's voice echoed down the hallway. Shaky, nervous. I didn't answer. I stood still, looking out the window toward the pile of ash that had once been Claire's art studio. And for the first time, I felt something close to satisfaction. Brandy's footsteps came closer until she reached the doorway. Her eyes were red, tears running freely as she ran toward me. "Daddy, please," she sobbed, wrapping her arms around me. "Forgive us. I love you. We love you. Don't shut us out." I pulled away, firm and cold. "I've told you already," I said. "There is no forgiveness. Not for you. Not for your mother." "Please, Dad," she choked. "You're not my daughter anymore," I said flatly. "The person who did what you did, who helped her do it, that's not my child." Her eyes widened, her hands trembling. "You love me," she whispered. "You can't just erase me." "You're wrong," I said. "Your mother left her wedding rings on the nightstand and spent the night in someone else's bed. That was the end of it. You helped her do it. Now you can talk to me through my attorney." Brandy's voice cracked. "You're really throwing away 30 years of marriage." I stared straight at her. "No." She threw it away. "You both destroyed everything we built. Now get out of my house." She stood there for a beat, broken. Then she turned and ran, her sobs echoing down the hall. The front door slammed shut behind her, the sound ringing through the house like a final goodbye. Her pain was real. I could see that. But it didn't touch the depth of mine. What she had helped Claire do, there was no coming back from that. The next day, Claire was served divorce papers. I heard she was devastated. Tried to fight it. Suggested counseling. Sent messages. I didn't answer any of them. Not a word. As far as I was concerned, the conversation was over. Even Derek, Brandy's husband, reached out. His voice shook with disbelief. "I can't believe what they did to you," he said. "It's made me question everything about my marriage to Evie. If she could betray you like that, what does that say about who she really is? How can I trust her?" He told me he wasn't sure about their future anymore. That he had called off their plans to have kids. He said he needed time. Space. Counseling helped, but from what I gathered, the marriage never quite recovered. Claire's life fell apart. When the house was finally repaired, she tried to move back in. But it was mine now. The divorce had sealed that. So she moved into a tiny apartment across town, picked up a part-time job at a local art gallery to make ends meet. The comfort she once had, the freedom, the stability, it was gone. The life we had built together turned into nothing more than memories. And all of it, every piece of it, was destroyed for one fleeting night. One choice. One selfish, stupid decision. She cried herself to sleep most nights. That much I knew. But crying couldn't undo the past. A few months later, after I restored the house, I sold it. Packed what little I wanted and left town. Claire never found out. Not until she came back, hoping to see me. She pulled up the driveway one day, only to find strangers living there. A young couple answered the door, bright-eyed, smiling, full of hope. The kind of couple that hadn't learned yet how fragile everything really is. The woman smiled warmly. "Hi there. Can we help you?" Claire swallowed hard, her voice barely there. "I'm looking for Noah Hawthorne. Is he here?" Their expressions softened. The woman nodded. "Oh, you must be Claire. Noah told us about you." Her heart skipped. "He said if you ever stopped by, we should give you this." She stepped inside, came back a minute later with a sealed envelope. "He asked us to pass it along. Said it might be important." Claire held the envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. "Thank you," she whispered. "Good luck," the woman said gently. "I hope you're okay." Claire turned and walked back to her car, her hands trembling. She sat behind the wheel, holding the envelope tightly. Tears welled up and spilled over as she finally opened it. Inside was a single page. Noah's handwriting. Apart. That one word hung in the air, heavier than all the rest. Those 2 weeks, the ones before the betrayal, they were the happiest I'd known in years. "You made me believe you had fallen in love with me all over again, Claire. I believed in us again. I truly did. But then Ivy told me the truth, how you used those moments to keep me distracted, how all that affection was a cover for what you had planned. And it broke me. You probably figured out I had something special planned for that night. I had picked out your favorite wine, a box of those chocolate-covered cherries you loved, and 24 roses. I even had cruise tickets, 7 days on a brand new yacht. It was meant to be a gift for us. But while I was getting ready to surprise you, you were in someone else's arms. You succeeded, Claire. You broke me. You broke our marriage. And you shattered 30 years of something I believed would last forever. I couldn't stay after that. Not in the house. Not in this city. I quit my job, packed up, and left the country. Don't bother looking for me. I've gone completely offline. I don't want to be found. Not by you. Not by Ivy. Not ever. This chapter is closed, and I'm starting over. It's going to take years to recover from what you two did. I stood in that house for weeks, trying to find something left worth holding on to, but there was nothing. Without you. Without my daughter. There was no reason to stay. I hope that night was worth it. I hope you and Ivy enjoy the memories you made together. Have a good life, Claire. Forget me, because I've already forgotten you. My new life begins now. NH. By the time I finished reading his letter, I was curled up on the bed, sobbing harder than I had in years. The tears I thought had dried up long ago came flooding back, soaking into the pillow beneath me. His words sliced right through me. What had once felt like freedom, a thrilling escape, now sat like a stone in my chest. I had destroyed it all. Noah's love. Our home. Our life. And now, at 52, I was alone. Just a shadow of the woman I used to be, haunted every night by the choices I'd made. I had traded decades of devotion for one reckless moment, and the cost was more than I could bear. And then, one night, something in me broke. I found myself standing outside Julian's house, a cold crowbar gripped tightly in my hand. I didn't make the decision lightly. But after everything, the wreckage, the grief, I needed to face him. When he opened the door, I pushed my way in. His eyes went wide. "Who are you?" he asked, stepping back. I stared him down. "I'm Noah," I said calmly. "The husband of the woman you slept with." His face twisted, fear, guilt, recognition all flashing at once. I thought, Claire said. "Save it," I snapped, stepping closer. "You knew she was married. You knew she was mine. And you didn't care." Before he could stammer another excuse, months of buried rage exploded from me. The crowbar came down. Once. Twice. Over and over. He fell to the ground, groaning, trying to crawl away. But I wasn't done. Not yet. When I finally stopped, Julian lay bloodied and whimpering, his body twisted and bruised, his pride shattered. I crouched down, looked him straight in the eye. "Here's some advice," I said, my voice low. "Sleeping with a married woman? Bad for your health." Then I stood, wiped the crowbar on my jeans, and walked out the door. My Uber was waiting. By the time Julian made it to the hospital, by the time he contacted the police, I was already 30,000 feet in the air, halfway to Manabi, Ecuador. It took 2 weeks before the authorities realized I had fled. Didn't matter. Ecuador doesn't extradite for assault. I was gone, and I wasn't coming back. Julian, meanwhile, would live with the consequences. Word was, he spent months in rehab. Physical therapy. Learning to walk again. He'd needed 25 stitches on his face. I heard the scars were permanent. Good. I had paid the price for betrayal. Now he had, too. I started fresh. With over $750,000 from the sale of the house and our savings, I bought a small beachfront apartment in Puerto Lopez. It was modest, but it was mine, and it was enough. 6 months later, I sat in a plastic chair, my toes in the sand, a cold beer in my hand, watching the Pacific stretch out endlessly in front of me. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in deep reds and oranges. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Look, breakups happen. Divorce? It's more common than rain. But what's not normal is staying in a life where you're no longer valued. Claire's life unraveled after I left. She kept working at that little gallery, barely making rent, still alone. Brandy, her husband, Derek, almost divorced her. He stayed, eventually, but it took years to rebuild the trust. I imagine some days he still wonders if he made the right choice. But none of that mattered to me anymore, because I had left all of it behind. I had burned the bridge, torched the past, and walked away from a life built on betrayal. Now, my future was mine to build, and for the first time, it actually looked bright.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel.